In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, June 26th, here on the Korean Peninsula. Amid the floating of more waste-carrying balloons into South Korea, North Korea attempts to launch a ballistic missile toward the East Sea in the early hours of this morning. Meanwhile, here in South Korea, the fatal fire at a lithium battery factory in Hwaseong city appears to have begun spontaneously within a stack of batteries, with smoke engulfing the entire floor in less than a minute. And findings for the month of April show a rise in the number of newborns, but a higher mortality rate for the same month keeps South Korea's population on a declining trend. We start with news of a failed ballistic missile launched by North Korea toward the East Sea early Wednesday morning. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
North Korea on Wednesday morning launched a ballistic missile that appears to have failed. According to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, the regime fired a ballistic missile toward the East Sea at around 5:30 a.m. from the Pyongyang area. A military official explained that the North appears to have attempted to test launch a solid-fuel hypersonic missile. However, the military said the launch apparently failed, as the missile reportedly exploded mid-air after traveling some 250 kilometers, likely due to engine problems. This is the regime's first ballistic missile launch in almost a month, and experts say it could be a response to the arrival of the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt in South Korea. But it could also be an effort by the regime to flaunt military achievement ahead of a key party meeting this month.
North Korea perhaps tried to highlight the success of the reconnaissance satellite, but that failed. So I believe they are continuing to test solid-fuel engines to achieve positive results with regard to solid-fuel medium to long-range ballistic missiles.
The provocation also comes after North Korea sent trash-carrying balloons for the second straight night on Tuesday, which was the sixth time since May 28th. As of Wednesday morning, the regime sent around 250 balloons, of which 100 landed in South Korea, mostly in Seoul and North Gyeonggi-do province. The military has been warning that it is ready to air loudspeaker broadcasts immediately against the North, depending on the regime's actions. Pyongyang is presumed to have launched around 2,000 balloons so far. The latest balloon delivery meant delays of up to 3 hours for dozens of domestic and international flights at Incheon International Airport early Wednesday to prevent the risk of an accident. In three-way phone talks on Wednesday, top nuclear envoys of South Korea, the U.S., and Japan strongly condemned the launch and agreed to keep a close eye on the possibility of additional provocations by North Korea following its recent summit with Russia. South Korea's envoy also vowed to ensure the public safety from the trash-carrying balloons. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, investigations into Monday's brutal blaze at a Hwaseong battery factory continue today, with 3 factory officials accused of violating safety precautions. Our Kim Jung-sil has the latest.
The government has ordered the Arirang lithium battery factory, the scene of a deadly fire in Hwaseong, south of Seoul, on Monday, to halt all operations as of 9 a.m. on Wednesday. One government official at a fire disaster briefing said the decision was made to prevent similar accidents from taking place. 3 factory officials have been charged for violating the Occupational Safety and Health Act, as well as the Serious Accidents Punishment Act. The government has also ordered around 500 other battery-related businesses to conduct emergency self-checks. At least 23 people, most of them foreign nationals, died in the fire. According to authorities, 17 were from China and 1 was from Laos. 5 were South Koreans. They were mostly working on the second floor of the factory, where final product checks and packaging were done. The government plans to conduct autopsies to identify the victims, with only 3 South Koreans having been identified so far. Authorities also plan to investigate how those foreign nationals came to be working at the factory and if the procedures related to their employment were conducted legitimately. CCTV footage from the factory recorded on Monday shows just how quickly the fire got out of control. Within a minute of smoke beginning to pour from stack of batteries, sparks and flames and even more smoke filled the room despite efforts from workers to put out the fire. The police and fire department are conducting an investigation based on the CCTV footage into what caused the fire. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
And news of the fatal fire at the Hwaseong factory and its callous consequences are raising much concern about safety at similar workplaces. Our Hwaseong covers these concerns and more.
Experts all agree that the fire, which broke out at the lithium battery factory in Hwaseong, was an unprecedented incident, something the country has never experienced before.
This lithium battery fire differs from past fires because the batteries themselves seem to have generated heat for some reason, reaching nearly 1,000 degrees Celsius and causing nearly flammable materials to also catch fire and spread the blaze.
Given the high number of foreign casualties, the government will strengthen fire safety education for such workers and develop fire extinguishing systems to prevent future incidents.
The Interior Ministry will manage the whole process to develop future preventive measures with 7 other ministries, including the Labor and Science ministries. The government will strengthen fire safety education for foreigners and develop fire extinguishing agents for materials such as lithium batteries to prevent future incidents.
To produce and use lithium batteries safely, Professor Moon said that technology must be developed to prevent them from reaching extreme temperatures close to 1,000 degrees Celsius because of the characteristics of the raw material lithium.
If the separator that distinguishes between the cathode and anode, which are the sources of lithium ions, is robust, heat is not generated. However, for some reason, this separator had some problems that led to explosive heat generation. Research is needed to ensure thorough functionality of this separator, and a system for this must be established.
Another expert pointed out institutional shortcomings in the classification of hazardous materials.
Lithium is classified as hazardous under substance management laws, but lithium batteries are excluded due to their minimal lithium content. Further discussion is needed regarding whether products using hazardous materials should also be classified as hazardous.
He added that the simultaneous loading of 35,000 lithium batteries was the cause of a chain reaction of explosions.
If there's excessive damage accumulation, firefighting becomes challenging and causes further damage. New regulations may be needed to restrict or require separate storage areas for large quantities of these materials to prevent such incidents.
Experts said that this fire is a strong lesson for the introduction of further safety measures, as it was a new type of fire in a specialized field. Hwaseong, Arirang News.
In other news, Korea saw a rise in the number of newborns back in April, but a higher mortality rate in the same month kept the country's population down. Our Park Gonu has the country's latest demographic portrait.
South Korea's population saw another natural decline in April. Though data from Statistics Korea on Wednesday showed that April's birth figures saw an on-year increase for the first time since September 2022, the population shrank due to an increase in the number of deaths. The number of births in April exceeded 19,000, which was an on-year increase of 2.8% due to the base effect, while a rise in the number of marriages from August 2022 until the first half of last year may have also been a factor. There were over 28,600 deaths the same month, up 4% compared to the year before, leading to a natural population decline of nearly 10,000. A Statistics Korea official pointed to the number of marriages in April as another area of focus. The figure soared by 24.6% compared to the year before, with just over 18,000 marriages registered in April. That's the highest increase for any April since related data was first compiled in 1981. The official said an extra workday in April for marriages to be registered compared to last year, an increase in marriage support subsidies, as well as the base effect helped boost figures. Divorce figures were also up by around 6% on year, exceeding 7,700. Park Gonu, Arirang News.
South Korea's global standing as an economic and cultural powerhouse means nothing if its people are unhappy. Now, this is according to President Yoon Suk-yeol while addressing an inaugural meeting of the Presidential Committee for Mental Health Policy Innovation at a hospital here in Seoul earlier on this Wednesday. The committee was created last year with the president pledging to provide 1 million people with mental health counseling by the year 2027. At its first meeting today, he spoke of intentions to expand public support by offering mental health checkups every 2 years instead of the current 10 years. President Yoon further called for efforts to change public perception of mental health issues, which he added was more crucial than changes in related policies. And the ruling People Power Party and main opposition Democratic Party of Korea have finally set a schedule for the remaining June extraordinary session. The two parties will convene a plenary session on Thursday to select the 7 remaining committee heads as well as a deputy speaker from the ruling party. There will also be a 3-day interpellation with relevant government authorities from July 2nd to the 4th on matters of national interest. Also, in July, delegates from the two parties will take to the podium after the 22nd National Assembly's opening ceremony on July 5th. There has been another prisoner swap between Ukraine and Russia involving 90 people on both sides. Our Hwaseong reports.
With the United Arab Emirates working as the intermediary, Russia and Ukraine on Tuesday took part in a prisoner exchange involving 90 prisoners of war each. The swap is one of several periodic prisoner swaps made during the more than 2 years of war, with the latest exchange taking place in May when each country handed over 75 prisoners of war. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said the latest swap is on the path to bringing all detainees home. Meanwhile, the first shipment of ammunition from a Czech initiative arrived in Ukraine on Tuesday. This comes as the EU member has led an effort to buy ammunition with funding coming from NATO allies to help Ukraine in its war with Russia. Officials in Prague said in May that the first 50,000 to 100,000 artillery shells would arrive in Ukraine in June. The Czech government said that over $1.8 billion in payments or firm commitments from 15 donor countries had been made, which would allow for 500,000 artillery rounds for Ukraine by the end of the year. Of the countries that pledged to take part in the Czech-led initiative, only 5 had delivered the promised payments by the end of May. The European Union and Ukraine also began membership talks on Tuesday, a move Russia has long opposed. The EU accession talks began during an intergovernmental conference in Luxembourg, with President Zelensky on his social media page on X saying that his people are realizing their European dream, adding that Ukraine is returning to Europe. However, Tuesday's talks will most likely be just a small step on a long road, as Turkey has been in accession talks for almost 2 decades without a membership. Hwaseong, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Defense Department has questioned the wisdom of prospects of dispatching North Korean troops to assist Russia in Ukraine. Pentagon spokesperson Pat Ryder asserted that the North Korean forces would simply serve as, quote, cannon fodder if they are sent to Ukraine, while also calling Russia's aggression against Ukraine illegal. The remarks come in light of a military pact between Pyongyang and Moscow that has raised speculation about possible North Korean armed assistance for Russia in its invasion of Ukraine. Meanwhile, with regard to talk about nuclear options for South Korea, he maintained Washington's policy against the presence of nuclear weapons on the Korean peninsula. And U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has voiced concern over clashes between Israel and the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. During a meeting in Washington on Tuesday with his Israeli counterpart, Gallant, Austin linked the tensions to provocations by Hezbollah but cautioned against another full-blown war in the Middle East. He also said the U.S. is seeking diplomatic efforts to ensure that civilians on both sides of the Israel-Lebanon border can return home safely. Duty-free stores are no longer the preferred venues of shopping for foreign travelers to South Korea, as many now seek regular shops on streets or high-end department stores. Our Kim Bo-kyung files this report.
South Korea has been witnessing a rebound in the number of foreign tourists, recovering to nearly 89% of pre-COVID-19 pandemic levels in the first 3 months of this year. Duty-free shops have traditionally enjoyed the bulk of foreign sales, but that is no longer the case, at least for now.
In the past, large group tour packages might have made a beeline to the city's duty-free shops. But these days, more tourists are choosing regular shops on the street, like this store, to buy the latest must-have items.
CJ Group's health and beauty drugstore Arirang is one of those must-visit destinations for foreign visitors, having seen a significant 263% year-on-year surge in first quarter sales. Shoppers say it is not just a store, but rather a trendy cultural spot with a wide selection of products.
I think the reason is this place, it's a cultural spot for us as a tourists. When we watch videos about Korea and stuff like that, we always see Arirang in the city and we want to see it.
And I mainly chose Arirang because they have a broader selection of products, and I can test some of the products here. And there's some stuff who can help me out if I wonder something. So that has been very helpful here.
The popular dollar shop chain Daiso is another enjoying a boost in sales, with first quarter overseas card sales and transactions increasing by 76% and 61% respectively. Online fashion platform Bushinsa's Myeongdong store too has seen an increase in the number of foreign customers, with the figure climbing to 45% in May from around 30% in March. Foreigners' changed consumer trends can be seen in department stores as well. According to the data, foreign tourists' top choice for shopping was road shops, followed by department stores. Major ones, Lotte, Shinsegae, and Hyundai all saw at least 50 to 230% increases in foreign sales this year from January to May year-on-year.
Many tourists who come to Korea now come after seeing places on social media, so they visit ordinary shops a lot. Duty-free shops are losing customers because they are not actively promoting themselves on social media, nor do they have many products displayed. It is important for customers to actually see products and choose from a wide selection, and that is why small shops are popular.
Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
An ambitious plan aimed at putting in place a standardized classification system for Korea's artifacts is well underway. Our Yoon covers the progress thus far.
In a storage room at the National Museum of Korea, special equipment is used to take images of artifacts. A 3D scanner takes what is called shape data, creating a digital replica of the artifacts with a margin of error between 3 and 5 millimeters. The detailed precision of the scanner even picks up any scratches on the surface. Over the past 4 years, more than 300 artifacts have been digitally replicated, including the pensive Bodhisattva statue, the Kwanggeto the Great Stele, and the Celadon incense burner with open work. Imaging the surface is just the beginning of collecting data towards building a digital cultural heritage platform. There needs to be booklets, brochures, and papers that give information about the artifacts, like where and when they were excavated and other significant information. And all such data needs to be linked. But until now, such information has been published by outside sources, which means each area of preservation, exhibition, education, and management all had different methods of data storage, and there were also incompatibility issues when transferring the data due to the use of internal and external network connections.
Beyond mere data collection, we need a platform that is physically much lighter and a foundation that can preserve quality data so that people can more easily access information on our cultural heritage themselves.
If the data can be standardized and put in the system, there can be many uses for it. Some examples would be the large media wall at the Incheon International Airport that requires high-quality video data, as well as the metaverse that requires both light and fast operation.
In order to make data that is accessible to all, we need both high-quality data as well as simple data that can be used in gaming or VR.
The research team says that the creation of a standardized classification system is 80% complete, but some 2 million artifacts are registered, and that is just in the e-museum. Once the system is complete, they are expecting it to take another 3 years to finish building the database. Yoon, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange pleaded guilty at a U.S. district court in the U.S. territory of Saipan, securing his liberty as a free man after a 14-year-long legal battle. Just a few hours ago, Assange was seen entering the courthouse, accompanied by Australia's ambassador to the U.S. and former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd. Last week, Assange signed a deal with the U.S. government to plead guilty to one charge of espionage instead of 18 charges he had originally faced. The deal would allow him to avoid further prison time and will be free to return to his home, Australia. Assange left the UK on Monday after spending 5 years in Belmarsh Maximum Security Prison, where he fought against his extradition to the US. Now to Kenya, where at least 5 protesters have been shot dead by police and a section of the country's parliament set on fire as demonstrations against new tax proposals escalate across the country. Violence broke out on Tuesday in Nairobi as angry protesters stormed through the police lines to break into the parliament, vandalizing the interior and stealing the ceremonial mace before starting fires. According to the Kenya Medical Association, the police then opened fire with live ammunition, killing at least 5 people. Kenyan President William Ruto called the protests an unprecedented attack on democracy and blamed the deaths on organized criminals. Protests have been ongoing for days, with President Ruto aiming to raise $2.7 billion to ease debt costs. China's Chang'e 6 lunar probe returned to Earth on Tuesday afternoon local time, with the re-entry capsule landing in the northern Chinese region of Inner Mongolia. With that, it has become the first lunar expedition to bring back samples from the moon's far side. According to China's state media CCTV, the collected samples will be transported by air to Beijing for analysis. Launch on May 3rd from the Wenchang Satellite Launch Center on the island of Hainan, the probe landed on the moon's South Pole Atkin Basin, an impact crater on the side of the moon that always faces away from the Earth. Chinese President Xi Jinping called the mission a landmark achievement. Britain's King Charles III and Queen Camilla welcomed the Japanese Emperor Naruhito and Empress Masako on Tuesday, marking the start of the 3-day state visit with the ceremony on Horse Guards Parade, a carriage procession, and a state banquet. Emperor Naruhito's visit is the first by a Japanese head of state since 1998 and was postponed from 2020 due to the pandemic. After inspecting the Guard of Honor in their traditional scarlet uniforms and black bearskin hats, King Charles and Emperor Naruhito traveled to Buckingham Palace in a gold-edged horse-driven carriage. The visit highlights the ties between the two countries, where Emperor Naruhito aims to deepen military, cultural, and scientific connections. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. After a refreshing summer day on Tuesday, it's hotter today under bright skies. UV rays will soar to very high to extreme level again to parts of Jeollado and Gyeongsang-do provinces. Be sure to protect your skin from too much exposure to the sun's UV rays. And afternoon temperatures could go up 1 to 3 degrees higher this afternoon, topping out at 30 degrees in most parts of Korea. Meanwhile, Busan and Jeju will see a high of 27 degrees. Meanwhile, a monsoonal front approaches Jeju in the late afternoon today, gradually spreading to the rest of season regions by tomorrow morning. Rain will come down harder tomorrow and Friday, along with thunderstorms. Now, the monsoon season looks set to begin in central regions this weekend, which will put the brakes on the heat, with the heat forecast to get stronger in the capital heading towards the weekend. However, it's forecast to rain throughout next week in central areas. Now, with that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
That ends our Wednesday afternoon newscast. Thank you for watching, but do stay with us for a daily panel session coming up next.